Hi, this is Gary from Next Actions. You've got a problem. You've put in place a temporary fix, but now you want to get down and fix the underlying cause. Or maybe you've just got a long-running problem, something that's been niggling at you for a long time, and you just don't know what to do to fix it. This is where a root cause analysis, or RCA, comes in. Join me after the break as we take a deeper dive into root cause analysis and how you can use them to fix problems in your work and your life. We all have problems in our life. Most of these are one-off occurrences that very quickly go away, but there's always some that are more persistent. No matter what you do, you just can't seem to fix them. You're always addressing the symptoms, but you're never able to get down to what's causing the problem. This is where performing a root cause analysis, often abbreviated to RCA, can be of real, practical use to you. An example of where you may wish to carry out an RCA. You're working in an office, or maybe a shop, or even your home. Every so often, one of the fuses in your main fuse box trips off. You treat the symptom by going and flicking the fuse back on. All is good for a while, and then suddenly it goes off again. You start to keep a log of the times that it trips out. In the log, you write down the time, but also what you were doing just before it happened. And from this, a pattern comes out. The electric goes off every time you plug something in. But that doesn't tell you the whole story. Why does it go off? When you dig a little bit deeper and you find out more, what you discover is you're overloading the circuit by having too many devices plugged in. You've now got to the root cause. From this, you can see two solutions. The first, well, don't have as many items plugged in. And the second, spend the money, get an electrician in, have them upgrade your circuitry to allow for you to have a higher capacity, more items plugged in. In this case, you decide to go for that first option. That's something you can do easily, and it's fully in your control. At the basic level, a root cause analysis is a process that allows you to understand and to solve a problem. You identify what is occurring, you look at why it's occurring, dig into how it's happening, identify potential solutions, and then pick the most appropriate solution and implement it. So, why would you want to do a root cause analysis? Well, there's many reasons for this. Some of the key ones include identifying what the actual cause of the problem is, finding barriers that are preventing the problem from being fixed, working through the problem in a logical and planned manner, identifying what your needs are now, but also looking at what your needs are likely to be in the future, and you're aiming to create a repeatable and verifiable process to fix the problem should it occur again. By making the fix repeatable, it means you can apply the same solution should a similar problem occur in the future. You should also be able to easily verify that the solution has worked. Because if your solution does not fix the problem, well, you didn't find the right root cause and you need to dig a little bit further. The focus should be on identifying and fixing the root cause. It's not a witch hunt. You're not looking for someone to blame. It's purely focusing on identifying what is causing the problem. And then you put in place steps to stop it from happening again. Each step of the way, you need to be focusing on data and evidence. It's important that you try to make as few assumptions as possible. If you cannot see a direct link from one piece of behaviour to another, then it's best to ignore it. Don't make an assumption that there is a link there. Every time you make an assumption, you add in errors to the process. and these errors may then hide the real root cause. In the course of your investigation, you may need to make some assumptions. This is there to allow you to move forward. But then you need to remove the assumptions from your analysis, document what your assumptions were, and look at the pure evidence and data that you've gathered. In our example, we may be plugging the same item in every time the fuse trips. So we assume that the issue is with the item we've been plugging in. But that's just a symptom. That's not the underlying problem. By making the assumption that it's the item you're plugging in means you do not get down to the root cause. And the next time you plug in something and it may be a different item, well bang, the fuse is tripped. This means you should be focusing on getting to the root cause, not just solving the symptoms. You should also try multiple streams of investigation. Don't think that the first one you try will be the right one. So if we go back and we look at our example, you'd plug in different pieces of equipment, and for each one you'd be recording what happens. To complicate matters, you may end up also finding there's multiple root causes. Again, this isn't a big issue. What you do is you prioritise them. You solve one of these root causes, you validate it, and then you move on to the next one. One step at a time is always the way to work. You need to make sure you're working in a methodical and a logical way. You make a change, you test it. If it works, brilliant, move on to the next one. If it doesn't work, identify what else needs to be done and then retest it. So how do you go about performing a root cause analysis? The process itself is simple. The work for each step, well, that may not be. Step 1, you define the problem. You spell it out. If you don't understand the problem, well, how can you fix it? In our example, we've got a very simple definition. The fuse keeps tripping. Step 2, you gather information, data and evidence. This is where you're going to be digging deeper into the issue so you can better understand it. You'll be looking at logs, error messages, and many other sources of data and evidence. In our example, this is where you kept a log of when the fuse tripped and what you were doing when it happened. That provided you the evidence and the data that you needed. Step 3. Identify the issues and the events that were happening. Here, you're looking at the evidence and the data that you've gathered. You're looking for patterns that help you to identify what is going on. In this step, you may be constantly asking the same question. Why? In general, you may need to ask the question why 5 or more times until you get to the root cause. This question, why, it's so powerful. It makes you look at your evidence, get over any assumptions, and drill down towards the ultimate truth. With our example, we can see the pattern is that the fuse trips when something is plugged in. You ask the question why? Because it's adding more load to the circuit which causes it to trip. Why? Because you've plugged too many things into it. Why? Because I leave lots of things on so it's easier to use later. Why? Because I'm trying to save time. And now we've got down to that root cause. We're trying to save time by leaving things plugged in. Step 4. Now we identify potential solutions. Once you understand the root cause, the next step is to identify solutions that will allow you to fix it. Most of the time, it's likely there's only one solution that stands out. But there are also times when you can come up with a number of solutions. In this case, you need to spend some time looking at each solution to determine which one you are going to implement. One thing I like to look at here, how simple is the solution to implement? Quite often, the simpler solution is the best one to implement. But you do need to make sure you look at all the solutions and think through each of them. Don't go for the simplest solution if it will only partially fix the problem. If you do this, you'll end up having to go back and fix the problem again. Look at each solution and assess them. Weigh up the pros and cons of each before deciding. Coming back to our example, we've got two potential solutions. The first, to unplug unused items, thus reducing the load. And the second, which would be to have an electrician repair the circuit so it can handle a higher load. When you look at these, you decide to go with that first option. It's easy to unplug items. You can also put up some reminders to help you to remember to do that. To have the building rewired, well, that's going to be very expensive and it's going to take a long time to achieve. Step number 5, implement the fix. You now know the solution that you need. The next step is to implement that. Take some time, come up with a step-by-step plan that you can follow, and then follow the plan, checking off each step as you complete it. The final step, step 6, validate the fix. You think that you've fixed the root cause, but you need to check it. Where possible, try and replicate what was happening when the problem first occurred. The best way to know you've fixed the problem is to repeat the behaviour that caused it. But this time, everything should work rather than fail. Yes, I know this is easier said than done. Sometimes you just have to try and test it to the best of your capabilities. But don't just fix it, then walk away and hope for the best. Fix, then test. Our final visit to our example. You've unplugged all the unneeded items. You test the solution by plugging in the item that last caused the trip. This time it should power up rather than trip the fuse. When you have a problem, take the time to produce a root cause analysis. Describe the problem, gather evidence and data, investigate to determine what caused it, identify solutions, implement your preferred solution, and validate that it all works correctly. Do you have any problems that you just don't know how to fix? Why not have a chat with me to see how I can help you to fix your problems? Working together, I can help you to get the results you deserve. Please reach out to me on 0415 591 672. I'm based in Australia, so please use the international dialing code +61 if calling from another country. You can also email me on gary@nextactions.com.au or visit my website nextactions.com.au, where you'll find a link to book a free, short introductory call. Do you have any topics you'd like me to cover? Please drop a note down below in the comments and I'll add them to the list of upcoming videos. I'll talk to you again soon.